So there's an entirely brand new loom out. We're calling the Universal X Loom. This is it. And it will come with 4 wedges, as you can see. It'll come in 2 sizes. There's a 160 and a 120. This is the equivalent, both of these are the equivalent of the small and large circular Afghan loom by CinDWood. I had actually come up with this concept, and CinDWood was absolutely wonderful about going in and taking this idea and making it a reality. And I had come up with this idea when I was standing in my kitchen and been like, oh wow, you can do an X and you can decrease in 4 different directions. And so the original size was actually this one that I had sent in the request for more like a universal hat. And if you didn't want to use the wedges, it also makes the size what would be for a baby blanket. But the reason why this is so universal is it has the versatility to do almost anything you want, because you have 4 different directions you can work from, and you can decrease by 4 different directions. And if you reverse and put your grooves on the other side, you can go in and do a 2 at a time glove, fingerless glove, or sock, or you can do 4 projects at once. Let's say you want to do a baby set. You can be working on mittens here, you can be working on booties here, you can make a hat on it, and you can make a baby blanket. So it really is universal. You could get a full baby set out very quickly. You can work on just a prong if you want, by flipping the wedge around. You can work on just a prong if you'd like. In general, the original idea was to have more of a point so you could decrease it down to 12, but I found when I tried that version that it was a little difficult to get into this area here. And by changing it up and making it smoother, which this is CinDWood's plan, was to smooth it out, that actually made it easier to knit. So it's actually not as difficult as you might would think to knit. There will be a series of videos that I'll be putting out for basic patterns on taking advantage of these wedges and decreasing them. So I'll be offering a basic hat pattern, basic sock pattern, showing you how you can do multiple projects on the larger one at the same time. But you'll be seeing a series coming out of my channel that will have how to go in and do some really basic patterns with these looms. And I think that y'all are really going to be excited and enjoy these looms. They're really going to change up the way you can work with your looms and how you loom knit and everything, because you don't have just one direction or 2 directions you can decrease from. You have 4, and that makes it really even, and you can do all kinds of things with it. So it kind of opens up the loom knitting world a heck of a lot more with these looms. So these are a new loom. You'll be seeing projects coming out. Be using these looms. They'll be simple projects that you can all do. Eventually, y'all know me, I'll come out with some more complex patterns as well. And I am loving how it's working up and everything. And I'll be glad to show you some projects that I've already made on them and how nicely the crown works up. So I want to show some examples of what it means when you can decrease down to 24, which is the max out you can decrease down to. And what that does is it gives you this really smooth crown. You don't have the bulk that you normally have with this, say the circular looms. And so it gives you this really beautiful smooth crown that's just absolutely wonderful. And so that also would work for like the tip of a sock. If you don't like Kitchener, you can actually go in and decrease down and not have to do the Kitchener. So it's actually really beneficial, and then it smooths out the top of the hat, and so that you don't have the bulk that's at the top of the hat, and it really changes the way that works. I'd like to give you some dimensions of what you can do between the 2 looms. Single prong, if you turn the wedge around, can give you approximately a 40 peg loom to work with on just a prong, which is a size sock for an average size foot. Typically I need 44 pegs, but this can work up to at least a minimum of a 40 peg. and you can make fingerless gloves on it, okay? But this one, if you take it to its max out, I believe is 32. Okay, so it's 32 at the max out. You can definitely make baby socks or toddler socks off of 32. Usually I do a 28 when making little girl here some socks and that kind of thing. So the 32 is really what you can do on here is the max out you can get. So you can adjust anywhere in between there. Now when you go it to its max out, a lot of times you'll lose 6 pegs at the end. But you got to remember you can add back in the 2. This will go as high as 104 total pegs when you max out your wedges all the way to the end. It gives you a total of 104 pegs. This one, when you max out to its total, is 144 pegs. So that kind of gives you an idea from 160. When you max it out, your wedges, that's how much you can get that you can decrease down from. Also, you can go in if you want a little bit more than what's on a prong. You can get all the other wedges down to a base, or you can get these wedges down to a base and work that way, more like in an L if you choose. The thing is, with a 3/8 inch gauge, you can actually use the worsted yarn to DK weight, and I've actually used a thinner, bulky yarn with this. It makes it a little bit more difficult. I would stick with worsted and DK weight, which works wonderfully. And on average, it's about, when on a swatch, when it's not stretched or anything at all, I believe 6 stitches per inch. When you stretch it, it's 4 stitches per inch, and usually I calculate anywhere, usually around 5 stitches per inch for a garment. If I'm doing a hat, I do 4 stitches per inch. But if you're wanting a generalized swatch for worsted weight yarn, it's going to be 6 stationary, 4 stretched, 5 average, and you can go from that if you're deciding on one of these looms and what size you might like to get. So they decrease down max to 24 pegs. Normally what I like to do is go in and do a prep decrease, which gets it down to 12, and then I draw a string off. And that still gives you the ultimate smooth finish, and you're down to, you know, no crinkling, no nothing. So again, these are a new loom, completely new. The Universal X Loom. Benefit, decrease from 4 directions, do 4 projects on the same loom. The options on what you can do on these looms are endless, and that was kind of the idea and the plan on them. So there's you some dimensions on what you might be looking for and what size you may want to get. There's some ideas of what yarns you can use, which worsted your average on more often than not. That kind of gives you an idea, and you can go from there and make a decision on which one you might be interested in getting. So that, in whole, is the Universal X Loom.